Welcome to Simplify Your Retirement with certified financial planner Stephen Stricklin from Wise Wealth LLC. In this podcast, we help individuals and couples plan for a peaceful and enjoyable retirement. Join us on this journey where we explore the importance of simplifying the retirement planning process, as Stephen, with his years of experience and expertise in retirement income planning, along with guest experts, will help you achieve first wisdom, then wealth. And don't forget to check out the Simplify Your Retirement online course and other great resources at simplifyyourretirement.com. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Simplify Your Retirement with Stephen Stricklin from Wise Wealth. Stephen, how are you?
I am doing great, Eric. I'm excited about today's podcast. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and I am also very excited. This is your first guest, officially your first guest today. Who'd you bring on the show?
That's right. Well, we're excited to have Larry Kotlikoff. He's an expert on Social Security. And so we're going to be interviewing him today. He's out of Boston, Massachusetts. So we're real excited to have him as our guest for today's show.
Absolutely. Larry, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Very happy to be here.
All right, Stephen, let's do this. Let's have some fun today.
Absolutely. So, as most of you know, been following the podcast, we've been going through, pretty much our program the course that we wrote. We wrote an online course called Simplify Your Retirement. We wrote a book called Simplify Your Retirement. We've got a live class that you can take and all these things, and even the podcast is called the Simplify Your Retirement Podcast. Everything we're trying to do on this show is to educate people, but ultimately the goal of education, ultimately the goal of knowledge is to help people have wisdom, and that is where they finally make decisions. They actually do something with what they've learned. And so one of the topics that we just briefly talked about when we're talking about how to plan for income, we talked about how Social Security is one of the obviously major components of someone's retirement income plan, but we certainly didn't go into detail when we talked about that in previous podcasts. And so today we want to focus this show entirely on Social Security. And as a certified financial planner, which I am, I do a lot of financial planning, investment management, insurance management, looking at taxes, looking at estate plannings. But it's great to come across someone who has a particular focus on something that is so important, such as Social Security. So financial advisors like myself, certified financial planners, look to people like Larry to give us guidance and give us education because they're really focused on Social Security. So I'm happy to introduce Larry Kotlikoff. He's a William Fairfield Warren Professor and Professor of Economics at Boston University, a Fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a Fellow of the Economic Society, and a Research Associate of the National Bureau of Economic Research. He received his BA in Economics from the University of Pennsylvania and his PhD in Economics from Harvard University. Larry is the director of the Fiscal Analysis Center and a regular contributor to Forbes.com. He started a firm called Economic Security Planning in 1993, and he is with us today. Larry, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be with you. My pleasure.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So I'm going to just dive right into the questions a lot of times that we get asked from our clients. And just, there's so much that goes into Social Security. We're going to cover like the big picture today. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is when it comes to Social Security, it seems like everything is based on a person's full retirement age or their primary insurance amount. Can you talk a little bit about that for a minute?
Well, the primary insurance amount is the full retirement benefit. So when you reach your full retirement age, if you haven't taken your retirement benefit before then, you'll get PIA, which is the primary insurance amount that being calculated based on your past history of earnings. So if you take your benefits before full retirement age, and for anybody who was born in 1960 or later, the full retirement age is going to be 67. So we're getting to the point where the full retirement age for people will be 67.
Right.
And for them, if they take their benefit earlier, which they can still do, which is the earliest is age 62, the benefit's going to be reduced about 27% or so. And if they don't take it at full retirement age, if they make it to full retirement age 67, and then they decide to wait for 3 more years up to 70, their benefit will be increased actually relative to the full retirement benefit number, and that's going to be benefit if they are patient. So the whole difference between taking your benefit at 62 versus 70 is about a 76% differential, 76% higher if you wait. Now, your benefit for your survivors, you folks just asked a question whether the PIA, the full retirement benefit, determines all your benefits. Well, not really, because the benefit that survivors are going to collect on your record depends in large part on exactly what you've received. So if you wait till age 70, you can often raise the survivor benefit for your spouse that you leave, or even your ex-spouse if you passed away, and having had been married for at least 10 years.
Yep.
So,
that's a very good point,
70,
Larry. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think it's a very good point and a good distinction because, I mentioned that it seems like everything is based on full retirement age, which is your primary insurance amount. But you brought up a good point, and that is the one thing that doesn't count on that is the survivor benefit, which definitely is something I want to talk to you about even more in detail in a minute. But that is based on the actual time that you file. So a spouse could actually receive as a survivor benefit an age 70 amount, not a full retirement age amount. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. Now, if their own benefit is higher than their own retirement benefit exceeds the benefit of the decedent, the age 70 benefit of the decedent waited till 70, then they're actually not going to get any survivor benefits. They'll just continue to get their own check. They'll get the larger of the two numbers.
Get the higher of the two. Okay. So, sometimes I've heard different people say that it doesn't really matter when you take Social Security in regards to the amount that you'll receive based on if you live to your full life expectancy. So if a person lives their full life expectancy, they would receive the same amount of money from Social Security, whether they started at 62, full retirement age, or age 70. Is that true? I've always wondered that.
That's not true.
That is not true.
That's
okay.
not, I mean, it is true and it's not true.
Okay.
It's true in an actuarial sense. So if you're thinking about if you're like an insurance company and you have a million people who are, let's say, currently age 60, it's true that you could set up the benefit schedule so that as people took the amount of money early, if they took it later, the average expected, or what we call the expected lifetime payout, would be the same, because if you took it later, you get a higher number, but you'd have it for fewer years. Now, in point of fact, Social Security has this kind of reduction for taking it early, but an increase for delaying it after full retirement age, which is called the delayed retirement credits. So it has this schedule of increases if you wait, but that schedule was set up decades ago when mortality rates were very different, much higher, and interest rates were different. So even today on an actuarial basis, the thing is not actuarially fair. In other words, the expected lifetime benefit from waiting is much higher than actuarially fair. It's much higher than if you take it early. But the other really important thing, much more important thing to get across to your listeners here, is that kind of a calculation is appropriate for a life insurance company or an annuity insurance company.
Right.
It's not at all appropriate for individuals, because you're not going to die at your life expectancy. You're not going to die for sure at any age. So you have to worry about the worst case scenario, which is that you live to 100. You live your maximum age of life. So economics says that we need to value the benefit right up to our maximum age of life. And in that case, the life expectancy and these actuarial calculations are completely meaningless. It's like, and they lead us to make the wrong decisions about being patient to collect a much higher number if we wait.
Yep, that's excellent. I appreciate that answer because we get that asked sometimes. I've always I've always felt the same thing, but like you said, there is a benefit to the delayed credits, and if you want to plan, you put the best plan in place. You want to assume you're going to live to 100, not to 83 or whatever the case may be. So. And I know there's a lot of other factors that go into when you should take Social Security, and one of those factors is continuing to work. So How does continuing to work, if someone wants to, start taking Social Security and they're still working, how does that impact their Social Security benefits, before full retirement age and after full retirement age?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. It kind of comes back to home, given where things are with COVID. Suppose you've been furloughed. You're 62, let's say. You've been furloughed for the last few months, and you've kind of run out of cash, and you need to take your benefits. And then, let's say 3 months from now, your job comes back online, and you earn enough money to lose some or all of your benefits under what's called the Social Security earnings test. And that test says that if you earn beyond a certain amount of money, it's some number less than 20,000 at this moment, around 19 or so, I think is the correct number. You lose 50 cents on the dollar. So here you're thinking, gee, let's say in 3 months from now, you get this offer from your boss to come back and work. And then you say to yourself, gee, if I work, I'm going to have to pay payroll taxes, federal income taxes, state income taxes, and then I'm going to lose 50 cents in benefits on the dollar. This doesn't pay me to go back to work. That's not actually the case. I mean, it is the case, but it's not the case. It is the case that you will lose 50 cents of benefits, but when you reach full retirement age, what Social Security is going to do is what they call adjust your reduction factor. So they're going to bump up your benefit at full retirement age in light of all the retirement benefits that you lost up till that full retirement age. So basically, there's no 50 cents on the dollar tax associated with this, except for maybe 10, 15% of the households, and that's a little bit more of a complicated discussion. But for most people, this is not really a tax. And after full retirement age, there's no earnings test whatsoever.
Okay. So if someone reaches their full retirement age and then they file for Social Security benefits, there's going to be no reduction anytime after they reach full retirement age.
Well, there's no reduction after full retirement age whatsoever for earning money. There's no earnings test that goes to zero. But even before full retirement age, there is an earnings test which changes in magnitude. The year that you turn full retirement age, it becomes a little less severe, but it's not really severe because they're beefing up your benefits or bumping up your benefits when you hit full retirement age to make up for the fact that they took benefits away from you. So it's not really a tax. People really need to understand that for 85% of American workers, they should just not worry about losing benefits before full retirement age from working. They should go back to work and not think that they're going to lose lifetime benefits because of they do that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think it's very interesting. Yeah, some people may say, well, I've already started Social Security early. I took Social Security before my full retirement age. I have an opportunity to work over here. Maybe I shouldn't take this job, or maybe I shouldn't go back to work since I already started Social Security, and they're going to you're saying, no, take the job, take the earnings, because the cost or what they're going to take away in benefits is only a temporary situation. They're going to make up for it later on.
They're going to make it up for almost everybody. It'll be fully made up.
Yep.
And it's so stupid that the system, that our government is tricking people into not working, because most people who are listening would not know about this adjustment of the reduction factor.
Right.
Because the Social Security doesn't even describe it on its website. So most people think they're facing another 50% marginal tax. They're in like an extra 50% higher bracket.
Yes.
And they don't work. They're trapped in retirement, and it's just terrible that we're doing this.
That makes
and the government's
sense.
not making any money out of this. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. The government is saves money and then gives more money back. So it's just ridiculous.
Right. It's like a disincentive for them to go back to work because they say, hey, we're going to reduce your Social Security if you do. But I appreciate what you're saying. I think it's very important. I hope the listening audience understands, what you're saying. And that is just because you took Social Security early, which is before full retirement age, for whatever reason, maybe because you were laid off, furloughed, you needed the income, does not mean that you should automatically not get another job or take another job or take advantage of an opportunity simply because it would reduce your current benefits until you reach full retirement age. As Larry is saying, it will be made up later, or more than likely will be made up later when you reach full retirement age. One question in regards to this is, there's a rule, I believe, and that is you have one chance to do a do-over in Social Security, I believe, and that is if in the first year that you start Social Security benefits, if you want to change your mind, you get one chance to do that, and you could pay back all the benefits you received up to that point. Is that still in place?
Yeah, you can do what's called a withdrawal of your benefit, regardless of what kind of benefit it is that you've applied for. So you have a full year to file a withdrawal. You have to pay back what you received from that benefit, and then it's like you never took the benefit. But there's another way to do kind of a do-over, which is the following. Suppose you took, let's go back to that furloughed person who maybe this person's 62 and they're out of work for the next 2 years. Maybe they're out of work actually until they reach full retirement age, and then they get a job. And then they say to themselves, gee, I wish I'm stuck here with my age 62 benefit, which is low. I wish I could do something to raise my benefit. Well, what you can do is not withdraw your benefit, because then you have to pay back like 5 or so years of benefits, but you can suspend your benefit. And then when you suspend your benefit, you're going to get what's called delayed retirement credits for the next 3 years. That's 8% higher benefit every year for 3 years. So over 3 years, if you wait till 70, from 67 to 70, your benefit will start up again at 24% higher value adjusted for inflation. So that's in some sense a do-over, because you put your benefit on hold, and then you get a higher number later on.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like that. That's a good point. So suspending benefits, not filing for a withdrawal of your benefit, but suspending them. Someone takes Social Security at 65. All of a sudden, they get this great opportunity to become a partner or something. They're making all this income at 67, so they could suspend their Social Security benefits, have it recalculated again, let's say at age 70.
Yeah, or just even if they don't get a job, they can just use their retirement account money. It's much Social Security, we have to understand, is for almost every single American household, Social Security is the second largest financial asset, if it's not the first largest. Okay. There's very few people for whom it's the third largest financial asset. So it's a big deal. And it's a much bigger deal than retirement accounts. And you want to, if you're going to take something first, you should be taking your retirement account withdrawals first to sustain yourself, and waiting till 70 to take your Social Security benefit. In most cases, not all the cases. I mean, if you for example, have a child who's disabled, they can't get a disabled child benefit off of your record until you start collecting your own retirement benefit. And if you have let's say a spouse who's taking care of that child, there's something called a child and care spousal benefit. They also can't collect that benefit until you start taking your retirement benefit. So there are some people for whom taking the retirement benefit before 70 makes sense. Also, if you're for sure you're not going to make it to 100, for sure your maximum age of life is like 80, then you don't want to necessarily wait till 70 to start collecting.
Right. So there are some health considerations when you're making that decision. But otherwise, if you're average, you have no known health issues or concerns or family history, the idea would be, maybe use your own money first, get you to age 70, and then start taking those benefits.
Yeah. But even there, you could have, I met a lovely doctor years ago at a party. He had just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He had about 2 years left to go. He was to live. He was 68, and he knew I'd written a book about Social Security, so he came over and asked me. He said, I just went last month to Social Security and told them that I have pancreatic cancer, and they said, well, you got to take your benefit immediately, and so I signed up for it. And I said, I noticed your wife's here at the party. Does she have an earnings record? No, she's never really worked, so she'll receive my benefit. I said, please go back to Social Security and withdraw that application and wait till 70. Don't collect. And even if you collect nothing, your wife will collect a 16% higher benefit as a survivor for the rest of her life. So
Right.
So this is a tricky calculation. It depends on what your spouse's work history has been.
Yeah,
and,
that's Yeah, that's a great point, and that is, it's not just one person. If you're married, or you have two people that are able to basically use some of the same benefits, your decision impacts your surviving spouse, as it were. So that's important to take that in
Yeah,
consideration.
it's a joint decision. Yeah, it's a joint decision.
Yes.
What your wife can get, or what your
Yep.
what your spouse can get, depends on what you do, and what you do depends on what you can get.
Right.
Depends on what your spouse does.
So long
Interconnected,
story short,
complicated.
the long story short is the surviving spouse always gets the higher of the two Social Securities. Is that correct?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated if the decedent spouse, the spouse that passes away, took their benefit before full retirement age. Then you have a different benefit formula for the survivor, which is called the Riblin formula. I could spend an hour telling you about it.
Yes.
It's complicated. You need to use, you mentioned at the start of the show that I set up this software company. We have a tool called Maximize My Social Security, which I don't know using, but anyway, our software helps figure out exactly all these complicated things about what's best to do. Yeah.
Yep. Very interesting. So when it comes to, some people get confused between a spousal benefit and a survivor benefit. Just real quickly, if you wanted to tell someone what's the difference between those two, a spousal benefit versus a survivor benefit.
Well, a spousal benefit is when your spouse is alive and you have a low earnings record, not just relative to your other spouse who's collecting. Let's say the husband's collecting and you're the wife, and you have a low earnings record relative to your husband, but also just in absolute terms, you've had a very low earnings record historically. Maybe you've been bringing up the kids and so forth, working at home. Well, in this case, you'll potentially be able to collect on top of your retirement benefit what's called an excess spousal benefit. It will depend, again, on your earnings history versus your husband's. Now, if your husband passes away, now you're in a position to collect a widow's benefit. And the earliest you can do that is at age 60. The earliest you can collect your retirement benefit or a spousal benefit or an excess spousal benefit is age 62. So now if you are a widow, you have a decision to make, which is complicated. And this again is where software matters a lot. You have to decide whether to take your survivor benefit, your widow's benefit first, and your retirement benefit later. So, for example, you could take your widow's benefit age 60 if your spouse dies before you're age 60. You wait till 60, you could take your widow's benefit and then take your own retirement benefit at 70. That may maximize your lifetime benefits, or it might be best to wait to take your retirement benefit at 62 and then take your widow's benefit at an age between 62 and full retirement age. And that age is going to depend, the optimal age there is going to depend on whether or not your decedent husband took his Social Security retirement benefit before full retirement age. If he did, then you don't want to wait till your full retirement age to take your widow's benefit. You want to take it earlier, because that's when this complicated Riblin formula kicks in, and then there's an incentive not to wait so long.
Right.
So,
well, you brought up a few very important points there that I want to make sure people understand, and that is the earliest you can draw Social Security based on your own benefits is age 62, but the earliest you can draw benefits as a widow or widower is age 60. And at that point in time, you can either take a spousal benefit or a survivor benefit. I guess you can take a survivor benefit, or you could wait till 62 and then start your own. But it's just important. I think people. Go ahead.
If you're disabled and you're a widow, you can start taking a benefit even at, I think it's age 50 that you can start taking a widow's benefit if you're disabled.
Okay. All right, very good to know. Yeah. But generally speaking, I guess a spousal benefit, if one spouse they both reach full retirement age and one spouse, based on their earnings, was going to get $2,000 a month, and the second spouse was going to get $800 a month, then the spousal benefit at least raises that second spouse up to $1,000 a month, so they get 50% the higher earning spouse's number. Isn't that correct? If they both reach full retirement age.
they both reach full retirement age, let's say the husband's been the lower earner and he qualifies for an extra spouse benefit. He get his retirement benefit, his full retirement age benefit, and then he'd get an excess spouse benefit, which would be calculated as half of his wife's full retirement benefit minus 100% of his own full retirement benefit. And you're right, if you add these two components together, it's going to be half. It'll come up to half of her full retirement benefit.
Okay, very good. So a couple more. Yeah, go ahead. Finish that thought.
I was just saying the spousal benefit is based on your partner's full retirement benefit, whereas the survivor benefit again is based on what your decedent spouse actually was collecting at the time they died, or would have collected had they filed for the benefit at the time they died, or if they're under full retirement age before they died and have never filed, they're going to get their. It'll be calculated based on what they would have gotten had they waited to full retirement age. So there's 2,728 rules in the Social Security handbook about the 11 different benefits that Social Security offers. There's even a parent benefit. It's 12 actually benefits, and there's hundreds of thousands of rules about these 12 benefits. So this is like the most complicated set of bureaucratic provisions ever invented by developed by a man. It's unbelievably complicated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why even during a conversation like this, it's hard to get down into the nuts and bolts of it, and that's why every person's situation is unique. And I know we'll get to that in just a moment, why that is so important. But I think you brought up some very good points there as far as, spousal benefit is based on, full retirement age, and the survivor benefit is actually based on the age at which someone started taking their benefits, when the person who passed away took their benefits. The survivor's benefit is based on when they took that, whereas the spousal benefit is based on a full retirement age amount. So I think that's a good distinction. A couple more questions here. I know we need to wrap this up here very soon, but while I've got you here on the call, sometimes people stop early. Let's say that someone stops working at age 60 and they're going to delay their benefits. They may wait till 62 to start it. They may wait till full retirement age of 67 to start it. Should people assume that their statement that they get Social Security, will be higher or lower than what they're projected? If they stop working, let's say at age 60, will their 67 amount still be what Social Security projects?
Well, Social Security is projecting zero inflation, and it also projects zero average wage growth. So let me put it this way. If you're like 45 and you look at Social Security's projections, they're definitely biased downward significantly. You could be given a number that's about 20% lower than the true number will be, because we don't expect there to be zero inflation going forward, nor do we expect there to be no wage growth economy-wide. So misprojecting, giving you bad advice gets less when you're age 60 and beyond. They're pretty accurate what they're going to tell you, for sure.
Okay. So no one should expect, hey, if I stop at 60, I'm probably not going to get what it said I would have gotten at 67. You can pretty much count on you would get. It's the same thing where some people get closer to retirement and all of a sudden they may take a job that's not their highest paying job. And so they're concerned that, hey, if I'm making $100,000 a year all the way to age 62, now between 62 and 67, I took a job just because I'm comfortable with it. I'm making $60,000 a year. Now all of a sudden I'm going to get less from Social Security at age 67. That is not the case.
No, you're going to possibly get more, because the earnings, you could be working at age 80, and let's say you're making above the ceiling, which is around $140,000, the taxable maximum. Let's say you're earning that much money. Or let's say you're earning $200,000 at age 80. Well, your benefit next year and forever after will be higher beyond the increase associated with the cost of living adjustment, because your earnings record will include a year. The way they do the calculation of the what's called average monthly earnings, it goes into this PIA, this primary insurance amount for retirement benefit calculation. The way they do that, it incorporates all your years of earnings from age 16 right up through the last year you work. I mean, if you worked last year or you're age 80, includes that last year's earnings, and you can keep raising your your average monthly earnings number and keep getting a benefit kicker.
Very interesting. That's a good point. I think a lot of people just assume age 70, even if you work after age 70, you can't do anything to increase your benefits, but you can by continuing to have high earnings. Yeah, very interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
One final.
It may not, it may not cover your extra payroll taxes. Just to be clear,
right, or Medicare payments or stuff like that. But yes.
On the other hand, I do want to say there are some people that have had very spotty earnings histories because of many reasons, and for them, working another year or two could raise their lifetime benefits by a lot more than the extra payroll taxes. So because of the progressive nature of the benefit formula. So for some people, again, here's where the software can really help. For some people, it really is a freebie to work more in terms of Social Security. Your extra taxes are less than your extra benefits.
Right. Yeah. Well, Larry, I really appreciate the time today. I have one final question for you, and that is if you just had one piece of advice for everyone who wanted to maximize their Social Security benefits, if there's such a thing as one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's this. You can't count on dying on time.
Okay.
You can't, just like you can't count on not having cancer or not totaling your car or not having your house burned down. So you have to insure yourself against that worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is you live to 100, and the reason that's the worst case financially is not psychologically, but financially it's a worst case because you have to keep paying for yourself if you live to 100. So that's a catastrophic event. And so you have to worry about that. And waiting till 70 to get the highest possible benefit is giving you that benefit all the way up to age 100. So that's giving you insurance. You're buying, in effect, by giving up benefits for 8 years. You may die at age 72, but guess what? You'll be in heaven and not need any money. So don't kick yourself in heaven. Right.
And if you do live to be 100, you have gotten 30 years worth of Social Security payments at the highest possible level.
Exactly. And that's really what people need to. And only 2% of people are waiting until 70 to collect. So almost everybody's making the wrong move here.
Amazing. Wow, that's a huge stat right there at the end. Larry Kotlikoff, really appreciate it. Anything that you want people to know if they want to learn more about you, your book, your materials, your software? I don't know if you work directly with the public or with just financial advisors, but if people in the audience want to learn more about you, what's the best place to get information from you?
Okay, so I'll give you three websites. One is kotlikoff.net. So it's just my last name, KOTLIKOFF.net. I'm a professor of economics at Boston University, so if you forget how to spell my name and just look for the faculty list there, you'll see the only guy with a K in his name is me. The other, there's maximizemysocialsecurity.com is our Social Security tool, and then we have another tool that also does Social Security optimization, but does full financial planning and helps you find other safe ways to raise your living standard. And that's called maxify.com. It's maxify.com. maxify.com.
Excellent. Larry, really appreciate it. I know we went a little bit longer on the time of this podcast, but I know that this particular topic is obviously, like you said, either the largest or the second largest asset that someone has living on in retirement, and really probably cannot spend enough time on it. But I'm hoping that the audience, the people listening to the show today, will find a great value in it. Certainly, you can go to kotlikoff.net, maximizemysocialsecurity.com, or maxifly.com and learn more about Larry and his materials and his research. Appreciate it so much, Larry. Thank you for being with us today.
It's a great pleasure.
Guys, this was fantastic. Yeah, you went over time, the longer podcast, that's okay, but I can tell that you barely scratched the surface on this issue. Yes. So holy cow. I can see Larry coming back in a future episode, maybe next year, later next year, to see how we're doing in 2021. Again, Larry, thank you so much for being on the show. And of course, Stephen, thank you so much for bringing Larry on the show and helping our audience get just a glimpse at all the different options. I think, I can't quote Larry, but I think he said there's tens of thousands of rules and regulations, and good grief. How do you wade through that? And that's exactly what you do, is you bring on an expert.
Yep. Obviously too is to work with, financial planners and financial planning teams. We have access to Larry, his software, and those kinds of things too. Very important not to do this alone.
Yeah. Again, Larry, I thank you so much for being on the show. Stephen, of course, I'm thanking you for bringing him on the show because you have these experts lined up that you work with and that you can rely on for the work that you do. And of course, the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Simplify Your Retirement podcast with Stephen Stricklin. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Stephen comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Wise Wealth, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Simplify Your Retirement podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Wise Wealth LLC or Simplify Your Retirement. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of a financial advisor or other qualified financial professionals with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.